Hello and welcome to the Eat Right and Move podcast. This is episode number 2 of our weight loss series, and today we're talking about basically measurements and assessments, aren't we?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. A lot of people, because last week we talked about goal setting.
Yep.
So a lot of the time people goal set, but they don't do any form of tracking or assessing or any recording to see if they're actually working towards their goals. So what we know is the crucial thing is after we do go through the consultation and goal setting procedure with clients is we do go through an assessment process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you really touched on a really key point there in the fact that actually if you don't do those initial assessments, you can't really set proper goals because you don't know where you're coming from. So yeah, absolutely.
It's quite interesting. I always talk about it in kind of the diet industry, and when people how that kind of works is you're kind of person A who you are now, that's got you to your current position, and you kind of want to you want to become someone else because you want to either lose weight or change shape. A lot of the diet industry just say, well, you're here where you are, but we're going to show you you're going to be this person now, and they'll make you kind of complete a total transformation, but forget about where you're at and don't think about how difficult it's going to be to make those steps to where you are. And that's why we do an assessment, is so we know where your starting position is, and then we can plan out the kind of the step-by-step process you will go through to get where you need to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're going to talk about a number of ways of assessing today.
So what kind of assessments do you do?
What, with my clients?
With your clients and yourself, because I think I definitely myself, I still assess certain aspects of my life. I might not do total.
Yeah. That's a really big question. Well, if we're talking sort of training and body composition related, obviously I track my workouts. I know kind of week on week what I'm doing, what I'm lifting, what I'm moving, and the volume as well. But also kind of I'll do all of my circumference measurements. So I will track weight. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do track it because it's nice to see a number change sometimes, Body fat, really, really key one. And there's lots of ways of doing that. Some more accurate than others. And personally, kind of, I don't know, all sorts. I think it's really key to reflect on a lot of things a lot of the time. And I find just kind of doing that day in and day out is really kind of important from a tracking measurement perspective, and whether or not you're making progress in life, business, whatever. And certainly for me more recently that's become really important, probably more than it ever has. And all sorts of other things. I don't really religiously track sleep, but I have a good idea of quality, length, time, that sort of thing. I will track my nutrition relatively regularly. Again, I don't, I'm not counting down to the individual calorie at the moment, but I definitely go through phases where I do. That sort of thing, really. Yourself?
Again, I do still track. For me at the moment, I'm tracking my nutrition a lot more. Again, that's kind of tied into more from a reflective practice of our own carb coding program we do. I'm kind of having a personal assessment on that. So I will go through and track my nutrition. I track my health the same as you, as in weight, circumference measurements, body fat, things like that. I track all my programs, and I actually track my productivity, which is something that again, a lot of people, when they do track things, they'll track health, they'll track fitness. They don't track lifestyle. So you mentioned sleep as one, but I personally, I'll track productivity and kind of my projects I'm working on. And having the ability to do that it can help with things like time management, but also help with you getting stuff done more than anything else. So there's lots of things we can track. And kind of what we're going to do is walk you through kind of like a basic guide now of how you can track as part of the weight loss series.
And what is that? I'm sure there's a famous quote about it. What gets measured gets done. Who said that?
I don't know, but I like it. It's the first time I've actually heard that.
Yeah, I can't remember who said that. Well, let us know in the comments below if we don't put in the description. Okay, so where are we going to start today?
First thing that people should be tracking is their health, especially if you're on if you're following the weight loss series because you want to achieve results. The first thing we will track in health measurements.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting one. So
what's the key few that you would recommend people tracking?
First thing they do, sleep.
I say that's more lifestyle. I'm talking health as more kind of weight
Oh, okay.
Sorry, personal health sort of thing.
Yeah, but weight isn't a reflection of health. Unless you're obese.
I'm talking more kind of, I think if you were to do this in a sequential order, before you do your fitness testing and all that, you'd assess things like weight.
Oh yeah, circumference measurements.
So if we do it in order like that.
Okay. Right,
so that's what,
yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about in terms of kind of body assessments basically.
Yeah.
So ways to track your progress if you kind of on that weight loss path. So
Yeah.
kind of with that view in mind now, what's the first thing you would go for?
Again, it would be circumference measurements. Would be the first thing I do. I normally ask for weight, but I'm kind of moving more and more away from it these days. The problem is that you actually can't successfully measure body fat without taking weight. So you're in a bit of a catch-22 there, because I like body fat percentage as a really good indicator of health. So I would normally do all of those, and that's it really health-wise.
I would say circumference measurement's key. So
Yeah.
if you're going to do them, you kind of want total body. I know a lot of people sometimes just measure the areas they're worried about, but it's good to track more than one area, just because then what you know is if you are changing shape, you want to know that it could be coming off somewhere, just because annoyingly our body doesn't dictate where can't sort of say it's going to go there first. It can come off in the randomest places, or it could come off in the key places.
I mean, again, that's another really key point with the whole weight argument. A lot of people, especially women, and not to pick on women at all, but weight is the thing that they tend to focus on. And actually, through training and proper nutrition, oftentimes we don't see weight loss. We see body composition changes. And that's where the circumference measurements really come into their own, because it's a measurable, visible change, whereas weight fluctuates, especially with the hormones that women carry around.
Okay, so if we're looking at the key areas, these are the ones we agreed to. So you should have a chest measurement, that includes the shoulders. We should have a waist, which is kind of the smallest part around the body through the belly button.
Belly button we normally go for, yeah.
Hips, which is the widest part around the body.
Yep.
You will have legs, which is the widest part of the thighs.
Yep.
And arms, which is the widest part of the bicep and tricep, so around the top arm. So
they're normally pretty good.
They're the 5 key we sort of focus on.
Yeah.
To try and achieve.
We've got a guest.
Yeah, guest podcast today. So they're the key ones that we would do to track. Again, I normally will track weight, because I do both, because most people, like you say, I still got a fixation on weight.
Yeah.
And kind of, as long as you're doing both, you can explain answers and results, and it kind of is a happy medium. So if you choose to do so, you can.
The thing is, and we see this regularly, if someone comes to you and says they want to lose 10 pounds, I can make someone who comes to me with that goal look completely different but not lose a pound. They'll reach their goal but in a completely different way, so try and move away from weight. Anyway.
The only other one that I sometimes do is clothes size, because a lot of people come to you
clothes size is brilliant,
wanting to actually get into old wardrobes or kind of build their own new ones. So by doing that, tracking your top measurement and your bottom half measurement as ways to measure changes to body assessment, it can be quite good. And they're the 3 that I'd recommend people using.
Definitely. So next up.
So once you've done your health, your body assessments.
Yep. Fitness.
Next,
normally. There's a lot of ways of doing that, and
well, we have the two methods of fitness testing. We have what we would call standardised fitness testing, that kind of most people do. But we've also got our personal fitness testing, which is our functional movement screen, which you put together. So if we just kind of talk a bit more about, we would say if you're going to do a fitness test, we were going to say follow the standardised one. It's simpler. The functional movement screen, you do need a professional to walk you through doing that. So what I would, but kind of talk about the benefits of doing a functional movement.
Absolutely.
If you have the opportunity.
The benefits are that we can really highlight some imbalances, and it's a really good way for us to then refer on to other professionals if you've got any serious issues. Most people don't. Most people just have slight imbalances which we just work through. But you do get the occasional people who have been in a job for their entire life that involves hunching over a desk or something, and they're tight all up their entire posterior chain, which just creates all sorts of problems, and it needs to be sorted out. And as much as we can do so much to kind of help with that, sometimes it's really good to get other people involved. So from that perspective, I would always recommend getting one done, one way or another. And if that means just going straight to the other professional, then that's fine.
But I like it because in terms of when you kind of work with me, you kind of not only does it dictate kind of worst case scenarios where people who do need to get professional, I think everybody has some form of area which is tight or they have reduced range of movement.
No one's perfectly balanced.
And kind of just through general training and kind of focusing on technique, you can kind of work out some of those issues.
Yes.
But if you don't, it can lead you down to poor technique training.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we see a lot of.
The thing is, I mean, obviously in the first session we ever have with somebody, it's going to be completely technique focused. What the screening allows us to do is pick up on kind of real serious issues. So come the first session, we're already prepared with the correct coaching to get someone through it quicker. Whereas we could spend an extra 10-15 minutes just working someone through a squat if we haven't done that before. So it's a really great way of kind of speeding up those results and getting people to where they need to be faster.
So the other type of testing we talk about are standardised fitness testing.
Yep.
It's not standardised as in we compare you to a group. These are just our standard fitness tests. We do, because a lot of people that will come with, yes, you want to lose weight or you want body shape change, but again, to actually be fitter and be able to do more and achieve more can give you such a feel-good factor that it crosses over into other areas. Yeah. So we kind of talk about the 4 key areas to test.
Yes, well we'll normally do a timed squat test, what do we normally do, a row test?
Time press-up test.
Time press-up test, time squat test, plank test. That's it, isn't it?
And some form
of
row or cardiovascular, anything to track that. So kind of there are your 3 areas of fitness: upper body strength, lower body strength, core strength, and cardiovascular fitness. Again, just having 4 variables is not just the only thing we look, because we record all people's programs. You record your programs, your CPBs. And
see, this is the thing. Yeah, actually, one of the best fitness tests you can do is just tracking your workouts regularly, because you can see a progression in either increasing weight, reducing time, whatever. There's so many variables to measure within a workout that you can see a reasonable progression, and if you're just not putting in the effort, really.
So the opportunity, we do the standard test as part of the functional movers training, and we encourage anyone to do some form of fitness testing just to make sure, like Johnny says, if you're not pushing yourself in training and you don't see improvements on your fitness test, then you need to question how you're training. And that's kind of what the fitness test is for, is just to make sure that A, you're putting the effort, but B, you're doing things right. Yeah. So again, those 4 tests, so squat test is, time test is just, we set a 60-second time limit, and you see how many full squats you can do. So depending on that is down to ability level, so we're not looking for everyone kind of perfect squat all the way to the floor. We're looking at what your range of movement will let you do, whether that's quarter squat, whether that's 90-degree.
And again, we'll have discovered that in the movement screen beforehand, so we'll know kind of your physical capabilities at that point. And again, like Lee said, it's not about getting the perfect squat doing that, it's just about getting as perfect a squat as you can get. So again, the same rules apply to press-ups, rows, whatever else you're going to do.
I think the good test you can do at home is what I call the chair squat. So get a chair, squat down and hit it and come back up. So you've got your 3 variations. If your legs can't take it, you can sit back down and squat back up. If you're a little bit more fit, you can do the tap where you just hit it, or you can do a full squat where you take the chair away. So again, that's one you can do at home. Again, the press up 60-second test is exactly the same, but the 3 variations you can do are wall, kneeling and full. Again, it's specific to what your body will let you do. You just count how many reps you can do. Plank test, we prefer the extended
plank. Yeah, because that gives us an idea of full body engagement, really. The elbow version of a plank doesn't really give us that. You can't tell whether the lats are engaged, you can't tell, Anyway, that's going into too much detail, but it gives us a better idea of full body strength doing the full on plank.
Just make sure you're feeling it in your core, and B, check your posture while you're doing it. So again, mirror exercising we're not a big fan of, because you should feel it, but the plank is so easy to cheat on the plank without checking.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no problem with someone using a mirror once or twice, but
it's kind of when you're kind of squatting 15 times looking at a mirror,
and then you end up creating imbalances because you're doing that.
So that's the reason why we don't like to do it. But so we've got So plank test is just how long you can hold a plank for.
Yeah.
Use the timer. Don't try and count because I guarantee
You can't
your,
count.
Your 10
time.
second plank might be slightly quicker if you're counting.
Yeah. 1 minute, maybe 30 seconds.
And the trouble is, it's the same if we do it. If we're sitting there counting, we know all the tricks to slow ourselves down, but I guarantee I will eventually speed up towards the end. So
absolutely,
we've got that. And then the cardio test can be anything. We always make it specific to what you want to achieve and what your ability. So again, I've done star jumps with people if you've got limited space. If you're outside and you don't mind running, doing a kind of a sprint shuttle is brilliant. If you're in the gym, you've got the rowing machine. It's down to you. So use what space you've got to do it. But just test to see how long you can do something before you want to stop, or how far how long it takes to do something, to do a distance or something like that. But it's just a great way to track cardiovascular fitness as well as the other three.
Definitely. So, we have touched on mobility, we've touched on fitness and health, so now we need to talk about lifestyle.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, lifestyle.
So,
already mentioned it earlier, sleep.
Yeah.
Super important. Really, really recommend doing this really, really early on. Get yourself a little diary, write down the time you went to sleep, write down the time you woke up, when you wake up, how many times you woke up, if you was awake for an extended period of time, just to really give you an idea of quality and length of time that you're sleeping.
I think it's not just good enough to write how long your sleep is, because if you are going to bed at different... Well, no, it's also the time you go to sleep and the time you wake up.
Did I not say that?
You did, but I'm saying a lot of people will just say, I've got 7 hours, I've got 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's the time you go to bed, the time you wake up, because if that's different, that could actually be the reason why you're not feeling
absolutely
great. So, like I say, you can. I'll also get people to rank it as well. There's another great way, simple way to do
1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or something like that.
Because again, this also comes down to the point of someone outside reflecting on your results. Because if you think that I'm getting 8 hours, I'm waking up 4 times, I'm going to bed at fairly similar times, and I give myself about a 9 out of 10, and then kind of we make a few changes where we get a bit more routine into your sleep, and then you say, well, that feels 10 times better now. Sometimes people can't honestly reflect.
No, with scales, they're very kind of subjective, aren't they?
And I think comparing how they feel with standard variables like we talk about in terms of time you go to sleep and that is a great way to actually track someone's perception of sleep as well as their quality of sleep.
What other factors have we got? Stress?
Stress is the next one.
Yeah, and again, you measure it in just the same way. You know, get yourself a lifestyle journal, log something, and just track stress levels, time of day that you're most stressed, what's getting you stressed, how stressed that is. Again, use a scale.
I also get people to actually, at the start, kind of list if they try any coping mechanisms. So how do you get rid of stress? So if it's food, if it's exercise, if you do kind of deep meditation, things like that. So it's great to see what your kind of link with stress is. Because again, if we've got a stress food link, then that's something that is more important to tackle than kind of what you're eating kind of on a weight loss journey. So that's key. And I think the other thing I track with lifestyle is kind of work, relationships, kind of balance, kind of that kind of whole package. How much do you work in a day? Is it kind of, are you doing just 9 to 5, or you're working lots? Do you tend to go out lots? So we track kind of frequency with many times you socialise, what your responsibilities are, how you work within your family unit. And it's kind of all these variables are quite important to consider, because again, lifestyle is kind of the one that's a factor that's not considered as important.
No, people tend not to focus on it at all. They tend to go straight for fitness and straight for food, and then forget about everything else, which we find a little bit odd, because actually getting your life balance right is so important for everything else. You're not going to be able to focus on nutrition long term if you haven't got correct sleep, if you're not managing your work-life balance, if your stress management isn't good. You're not going to be able to keep 100% fitness intensity all the time if all of those other things aren't right. So, you know, it's so important to get the balance right. And I hate that word balance, because I do, but you know, you have got to try and balance it out.
I think balance is just used in too many
wrong
places. I think
equilibrium would be a better word.
I think lifestyle is quite poignant, because it has the thing. I think what the next topic, the last kind of thing we assess, is when it's used in nutrition.
Yes.
Because I think it's used the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's used to kind of encourage moderation,
Yeah.
which is kind of not a route we want
Yeah.
people to go down.
No. I think that's where I hate balance in nutrition.
But again, like I said, I personally track my nutrition at the moment, and it's something you've done in the past. You've used apps.
Yeah.
We've just done standard pen and paper.
Yeah.
But the power of writing your food down
it alters
can
your
improve.
behaviour. We know for a fact that just keeping a food diary for 5 days alters people's behaviour. All of a sudden they're eating perfectly, and you think to yourself, well, you clearly weren't before. So, you know. So actually, you know, whether it be writing it down, taking pictures of your meals, scanning it in an app, whatever, it's a good idea to do the exercise every now and then, even if it's just for a week out of the month, you know, every month, just to really refocus you and gain a bit more understanding about what you're putting in your mouth.
I think, don't forget, again, a lot of people will track food. Don't forget drink. That's just as
Fluids.
important. It's you want to track everything that is going into your mouth, food or drink, is kind of where you're going with it. And kind of the level of detail is again, it's kind of subjective. A lot of people don't. I need, when I ask people, I need a bit of detail on kind of portion amounts.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'm not asking you to weigh it out. It doesn't need to be that complex. No. I'm not asking for absolute detail, because kind of food's food in certain cases, so it doesn't make a difference on brand. I always just tell people to break it down into its simplest ingredients, so I know if you're making stuff, if you're not making stuff, and kind of it gives me an idea of how you're actually cooking and putting food together. So.
But again, if you're just doing this for yourself, you find a way that works for you, and a way that actually just alters your behaviour in a good way, or makes you just more aware. You don't necessarily have to record every gram of everything to have that effect. Obviously, if we're asking you for a food diary, then we're going to want something a bit more detailed. Find what works for you.
Brilliant. Okay, so they're the key things that we said.
Yeah.
So again, like we did in the last one, we're just going to do a little recap of what you can do as part of homework to actually achieve and kind of make your own personal success from kind of the Weight Loss Series podcast. So first thing you do is pick one variable to track your body assessment. So we would say circumference measures is the key one. So we're talking chest, arms, waist, hips and thighs. Or if you want an easier one, dress or clothes size.
Yeah, clothes size, great.
So that's number one. Next thing you would do is do a fitness test to see how many squats, press ups, plank and star jumps you can do in 60 seconds. With your plank, just see how long you can do it full stop.
Yes.
And it's a
don't see how long you can do a plank in 60 seconds full.
So 60 seconds on 3 of those, as long as you can in the plank. If you need help, there's tons of videos on YouTube showing those exercises. Find one that you physically can do. Next thing, track your nutrition.
Absolutely.
7 days, write down everything you eat or drink, any way you want. Just make sure you record it.
Well, again, pictures works really well, because actually that's a real guilt trip. If you've got to take a photo of a chocolate bar, you're probably not going to, you know.
And then the last thing is your lifestyle. So track the variables in your sleep. So time you get up, time you go to sleep, how many times you get up, and quality. Track your stress. What causes identify the stress causes, how many times, how stressed you are, and any coping mechanisms you're using for it. And then I'll just make a kind of on the bottom of your food diary, a little note section. Just track everything you're kind of doing outside of that in a day. Just to have like a little personal diary to see how busy you are.
That sort of thing. Again, just to track that balance.
And that's all I'll do. And that's a great way. You can do kind of a little thing, we didn't really touch on this, but how long do you do this for? And
it's as long as you need to make a change in your life, really.
That's what I was going to say, as long as necessary. So again, if you're trying to lose weight and you haven't reached your target, I will still be tracking a lot of these variables. If we're getting a lot of them tuned in, I might be dropping them out, but there will always be some form of tracking and assessing in those 4 key areas. 4 key areas throughout the time you're working.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
Okay.
That was a nice, short, sweet one today. I think. So next week we're talking about...
Well, we were meant to be talking about sleep, but we knew that we needed to track, so that's why we brought this one forward.
Okay.
So next week we actually will be talking about sleep, because that's the first thing we get people to focus on right out the consultation, really. So we'll go in a bit more detail about that.
Definitely. Hope you enjoyed the episode. It's great to be back. Hopefully giving you lots of usable information here. Please do share this with people if you think it's going to help them. Leave us a review as well. And comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. We'd love to hear back from you, especially about who said that quote.
Yeah. It does help improve the quality of the podcast if we get feedback.
Yeah, and you can find us on Facebook and Twitter and all of that, and just search for Eat Right and Move, and you'll find us.
Yeah, lots of great information on there. Two things I want to give let people know about. We've got our in 3 minute series, 3 minute videos coaching you on nutrition, on exercise, on pretty much most things you will need. So check that out. That's on the Facebook. Also, we've got our daily email series. You can find that on our website. So sign up for that. Again,
you can also find that on Facebook.
Oh yeah, there's that on Facebook. Lots of great information comes out to your inbox, so you don't even have to search for it.
No.
Nice, easy read, bite-sized information is what we're aiming for, and a kind of monthly infozine.
Yeah.
That's going to be coming out soon to help you guys give more information and give more away.
Yeah.
So check that out.
Definitely.
All right. See you next week, guys.
Bye.